I'm just giving you an update on what we've gotten done. We spent the day getting everything ready, and yes, I got the tiller in the garage. I'm so happy about that. I just didn't want it to be left out and get ruined over winter. Waited too long to get my own, so I need to take care of those things that you have and purchase so that they last you a long time. We ended up continuing to winterize the coop. We have had the last few years, as the snow melts, it just like goes into the runs, and it's just a complete mess when everything melts. My husband took the car shelter down that fell down last winter, and we actually used the tarp, some of the tarp that was left, to cover the top runs of the coops so that when the snow does melt, it's not like dripping into the runs. We also removed all of the bars from that car shelter as well. The next step was getting rid of all that wood that was under there because we couldn't get to it. So the other day, my friend came over and we worked at getting some wood split and into the wood shed. Now it's pretty well cleared up, and my husband, I'm hoping, can get things kind of set up before the ground freezes so that we can start building lean-to that he wanted for the splitter and the wood for the winter. So the other thing is we got a lot of the wood started. We still have to continually work at that, but we're a lot more ahead than what we were. So that was really great. The only other thing that we really have to do to prepare for winter is get our winter tires on. I don't know if you've seen our videos last winter when we drove to New Brunswick. We had some pretty icy and stormy conditions, even if we're just driving and traveling locally. If you live in Canada, and if you live especially a little bit more north, you need to have winter tires. I will not be without them. Right now we've got all season on, and they're pretty good. They're kind of like that buffer between, snow and ice. Sometime last week anyways, my husband took my vehicle because I have the better tires on mine. So he took the all season, and there was snow and a little bit of ice, and he said they were not great. I just totally recommend winter tires. So happy that my friend came over and she just helped me like stack it while I was splitting, and Hannah was helping collect the wood, but he's just going to have to come out and take the chainsaw and just cut some more pieces. Getting a lot more days where there's almost no sun. The sun is just not around as much, so I've got to get out and enjoy that while it's here. And we actually got all of the cedar that had fallen. We got that all cut up. There's still a lot more trees to get done. There was a huge maple that actually fell with all the storms as well. Just got to empty out some of the water containers just because they freeze. Over the years, we've had this kind of big water tote that we use to water the garden in, and we left it one year with a whole bunch of ice in it, and it got so big that it actually broke the metal around it, the metal framing. So now we just go around and we kind of just make sure that everything's empty before the big freeze comes. If you have one of those, I recommend draining them for sure. And we got the snowblower out of the garage. Fortunately, we've lost a few of our roosters. We're down to 2 now. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just sucks that they go that way. Been making bread this week. I've made like 4 loaves of bread, so that's really nice. Especially this time of year, I tend to do more cooking and more recipes. The spring and the summer and the fall is just so busy with the garden and preparing everything and storing it away. I just don't get to it as much. So I really like the winter, just kind of how things slow down. Probably the best part about winter, especially with the time change and it gets later and darker in the evenings, there's more family time. I remember like in the summer, I could be out till 9 o'clock still working out in the garden. Or even though I don't enjoy winter, I don't enjoy the cold, the snow, the ice, I really enjoy the quietness and the time that's, slows down for family time and the time I get to spend indoors. I've been using a lot of the car shelter tarp in a lot of different places around the yard, so we're just kind of not wasting it. In Jason's plan, we have a lot of the metal kind of shelter pieces, so they're still really sturdy and really strong. We're actually going to be taking some of those and trying to fix up the greenhouse a little bit more, hoping that we're going to get a chance to do that. He's got some great ideas, so he's going to use some like self-tapping screws and be able to put a little bit more strength within like the top and the frame of the greenhouse and be able to pull it and straighten everything out. But I will say that the chickens are doing really well. They're very happy in their new little home and how they're situated. I do think that I am going to go probably this week and get some more heated water bowls because I'm finding that they're just going through a lot of water. One thing that you will find is that chickens go through so much water, like even more so than food sometimes, I think, especially like if you're putting them in for winter, you want to make sure they have a large enough water container. We come out every day and give them water, and every day it's always empty. So I'm going to go and I think I'm going to upgrade to some larger water bowls just to make sure they've got enough water. The interesting thing is in the fall and in the spring, they tend to go into a molt. Right now they are laying really well, which is kind of funny because of the temperature change. In the fall, I want to say in September, I was getting like 1 egg a day from all of my chickens. It was ridiculous. And now we're getting a ton. It just tells me that they're really happy, really cozy where they are and comfortable. We've lost, I want to say about 4 or 5 roosters within the last 2 weeks. And so that tells me that they were definitely stressed out because they were out here in the runs up until maybe a week or two ago, until I kind of locked them in the barn. The fact that we've lost those roosters tells me that there has been something coming around. They do see that, they sense that, and they get stressed. They know that they're cozy and kind of tucked in there, and I can tell that they're very happy because they began laying eggs again. Just by watching and observing the chickens, you can definitely tell when something has changed and is going on. I'm glad that we did tuck them away when we did, because I wouldn't want to lose a lot of my hens. We have seen some foxes around, we have seen an owl, and we have seen a hawk within the last week. They ended up getting a good few snacks, let me tell you. So our goal here is to, as you can see, we've got a layer of wood here, one row, got another one started just down below me. The goal is to get about 4 to 5 of these rows. We may need to go a little bit higher. Basically, we used about 3 rows last winter. So if we can get about 4 to 5, I think it would get a good head start. That's going to be our goal for the next month or so. So if you're like us and need to buy your wood, it's definitely good to call around and ask around. We called one guy and we got wood. I think it was around $1,400 for a tandem. But this year, since we had a little bit extra time, we called around to a few different places. They basically ranged anywhere from about $1,700 to about $1,000 a tandem. It can really save you some money. We kind of waited a little bit too late. He came and delivered it for about $1,000. It was a little bit later in the season. If I could recommend anything, do not, wait until fall. So we got ours delivered end of summer, early fall. I would highly recommend, if you can order yours in the spring, kind of maybe even early summer, have it be more dry for the winter. Even though it might have still been cut in May, it doesn't mean that it's dry. This stuff here, it was cut a while ago, and you would think because it was cut a long time ago that it would be dry, but because it's sitting out and it's left in logs, you can cut them up into chunks of logs and they would actually dry up quicker than leaving them as like how they are right now. Or you could take them and you could split them and they will dry much faster. Also, having them in place with lots of sun would really help, but also if you're putting them into like a woodshed, just make sure there's really good airflow as well. And even having a few weeks to a couple months in there will make it better than just coming out and cutting it in the middle of winter and putting it in your wood stove. So if you're new to wood stoves and new to wood, make sure that you know that. Just because it's cut early in the year does not mean it will be dry. As soon as you can split your wood with we have a wood splitter. It makes a world of a difference, but you can do it with an axe. It's just a lot more work. So find a spot that's open where it's going to get lots of sun, lots of airflow, and stack them and leave it over the summer to dry out. If you're leaving it kind of like how you're seeing it here, it will not dry. If you are using kind of wet wood, you're going to get a lot more creosote in your wood stove in your pipe, which is going to build up in your pipe and it could cause fire. So making sure that you have good hardwood that's dry. Creosote buildup is where you have your chances of fire. We haven't had an issue, thank God for that. We also have a section in our house where Jason has kind of built a stand that we can bring in quite a bit of wood that can sit there for a minimum of like 4 or 5 days. It dries out as we have the wood stove going. So I think last year we probably used just a little bit over a quarter of a tandem. We're hoping that we might be able to get 2 to 2.5 years out of this tandem, which means that if we continually work at this, cut up and split, kind of stacked outside, that we can use next summer to dry a lot of this. We still have some wood from last year that's completely dry, and that's been going really well. If you are cutting fresh wood, that you're going to have a bit harder of a time having wood to heat your house. And the reason why we went to a wood stove, for one, oil became very expensive. I think we were paying somewhere around $2,300 for the season to heat our house with oil. Last year, I think we paid about $700 for a half a tandem and didn't even use, we might have used half of that, so like a quarter. So it did save significantly. If you're using wood, it heats up very fast. It's hot heat and it lingers. It stays in the house for a long time. That's one thing that I really noticed about, because we've only had our wood stove, I want to say this is going on our 3rd winter with our wood stove. When we do have those times where we use the oil furnace, it is warm when the furnace is on. As soon as that furnace shuts off, it reaches temperature, it cools down very fast. And if you have the capability of having a cook wood stove, you are blessed. That's something that I've always wanted, but our place is a little small for one of those. We have just a little tiny one that does, I want to say, about 1,200 square feet or 1,400 1,400 square feet, and it does our home well. And our home is about 900 square feet. It does a great job. So I hope that kind of maybe answers your questions just a little bit about using wood for heat.